Okay, guys, 7 o'clock, we will call the meeting to order. Roll call, Chisman.
Present.
Benge.
Present.
Smith.
Present.
VanDorin. Go.
Present.
Okay, I will take a motion to approve our agenda for this evening.
I'll make a motion we approve the agenda.
Motion by Chisman,
I'll second that.
second by Cope. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, consent agenda. I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda for this evening.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Please.
Motion by Cope,
I'll second it.
second by Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Mayor's report. That's kind of brief this week, or this month, excuse me. The corn carnival's come and gone, and this year's edition seemed to run much smoother than it has in the past. Big shout out to all the volunteers who make this happen. Different groups working together for a positive goal has defined, is what defined this community for many years, and to me it felt like a lot like that this year. Every civic group in town pitched in some way and made it feel like a very successful weekend. Thanks to everybody that participated and helped with the Corn Carnival this year. I think it was a success. Also last month we had our work session pertaining to the water rates, and there was some confusion. If there's an agenda posted, folks, that is open to the public. So feel free to come out. I think there was some people that felt like that wasn't the case and that it was a work session just for council members. There's an agenda posted and we're meeting in here, and the public is welcome to come in and listen and hear what's going on. I believe the rate that we discussed, or the increase we discussed, is a plan that I come up with. I believe that is the best plan for our increase that we will probably be proposing at the November meeting. We'll have to have a public hearing on that, so we would like the public to be here and give their input. For all the reasons that was discussed at that meeting, which is on Brian's YouTube channel, if anybody wants to go back and watch it, this isn't something that we want to do, but something that we have to do, and it's been neglected for a long time. We've just got too many bills that we have to pay, and it's past time to be doing something about it. So on that note, we will move along. Any public comment this evening?
I'd like to see the council and administration address the building permit violation issue. We've got multiple building projects that have been started without the proper permits. These people need to be contacted immediately when a complaint is filed so that they don't continue to build. It's not so much for the complainee, it's for the homeowner who started construction. You don't want him to get several $1,000s into a project and in the worst case scenario have to have that tore down at his expense. So the sooner these people are contacted, the sooner they can put a halt on it so they can either get a permit issued up here to you guys or something like that. Some of them in my area have been a detriment to my property tax values. They're just shoddy things that's being built in my neck of the woods. I know you have a clause in the ordinance book that provides for variances or special applications, but variances have to be justifiable. They can't just be because somebody started something and didn't do what they were supposed to do. So I just urge you to address the building permit issue as we move along.
Yep. I think we're going to get to that tonight a little bit, so yep, that's something that's on board. So any public comment, anything else?
On anything in general, or
It's supposed to be specific to an agenda item, but Steve, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I will when you get to it, or do you want me to talk?
Go ahead, you can talk now. I think I know you're on the 305 or 303 property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want me to say that?
If you want to.
I received a letter from Heather Simplot, and then I responded to it on September 20th, and then I called her 3 or 4 times and she never called me back. So, but if she hasn't corresponded with you folks, I'll let you know what I told her in the email, I guess, that she didn't send to you or talk to you. Have you had any contact with her?
I think we got one from her and said you were going to start work, and I see you started work down there, and that's what.
Right. Well, I realize this property has been neglected for a long time, and I haven't followed through. And I actually, after I saw you a few months ago, I hurt my back and it slowed me up. But anyway, I have the means and the ability and the material to finish it. And if I need to get a building permit, I didn't know, does that right here, Blakesburg?
Yeah, that's what we're gonna be discussing
problem.
though, but I'm not sure if that's something that we need to.
I'm licensed in all the trades and
Okay.
not a problem.
Now, on that, on here on our agenda for this evening, that was something we're gonna, I mean, it was to possibly proceed with condemnation on that project. I guess,
My intention is to get the outside of it done within the next 60 days, and I'm gonna be selling both of the properties by spring.
by spring,
That's my intention, yeah.
okay, and that's what, maybe we'll possibly table
I told
that.
her I'd be happy to talk to somebody, but nobody.
Okay, and then, yeah, and that's what
I
it's.
never- That's why I'm here right
We
now.
got the one email and then we'll, but yeah, we might just go ahead and table that and then me and you can, we'll get together and talk
Sure.
perhaps and we'll figure
Like-
something out and get a timetable set up for when stuff, and get some expectations or whatever for
Yeah, and I'm gonna
moving forward.
hook both those properties up to the city water, because neither of them are.
Yep, that'd be great, man. Appreciate it. Okay. All right, any more public comment this evening? All right, we'll move on. Old business, fall cleanup. We did discuss in the spring, when we raised the garbage rates, the possibility of doing a fall cleanup day. And we do have the funds on hand, I believe, to go ahead and go forward with this. There's been some discussion of whether to do one dumpster, two dumpsters. We will have to find a different place to put the dumpsters because of the school in session, we can't put them down at the school. We talked about just right out here at City Hall, outside one of the big doors. Thought that would be an option for a dumpster, or even over here in the parking lot, just for a couple days, you know, a Friday, Saturday type deal, like we've done down at the school. Just give another opportunity here before it gets too cold for people to get some stuff cleaned up around the property and stuff, so, I guess,
One comment I might make, the approximate cost for one dumpster is $450. We could order either one or two, or if we weren't sure we'd need to, we could order one for Friday and then have them come and empty that one and leave another one if we get the one full on Friday. That way we wouldn't be charged for both if we didn't need those.
so, I guess we were looking at potential dates for that.
I think we had October 28th, maybe is what we were looking at.
October,
If that works with me.
if that would be okay with everybody, October 28th for fall cleanup.
And that's a Friday.
That would be a Friday, and then and get one for Saturday, the 28th.
I'm sure.
No, that's not right either, because the 28th would be a Sunday.
27th.
26th and 27th would be Friday the 26th, Saturday the 27th. I guess what I'm looking for is a motion to approve a fall cleanup day for October 26th and cleanup days for October 26th and 27th. Try to procure, should we try to procure two dumpsters? You guys feel that that would be necessary, or, does it didn't take us any time to fill up the three they had down there?
I would think.
Hey Jason,
Yeah.
you're more than welcome to use the parking lot of the fire station too, as long as we stay out of the way of the doors. That way it's, doesn't scar up concrete or break anything.
That would
You've got
actually
gravel.
probably be a better deal for everybody involved, so.
Solve that problem.
Yep. So
I can go out and show you about maybe where a spot.
How about, could you possibly have somebody there on the day that they come, so we can show them where to
I'll
go?
have to get back to you on that, I can't say
Okay.
for sure, but
Well, if not, you show me and then we'll have
Have them
somebody.
I
mark
can do that
Have them
overhead Photoshop deal and
Okay,
mark it out.
and we'll get her marked.
Yep.
That'd be great, so, all right, fall cleanup day, be at the fire station in the parking lot, the 26th, 27th. Be one dumpster Saturday, Friday, one dumpster Saturday. I will take a motion to approve the fall cleanup day for 26th, 27th.
I'll make a motion, fall cleanup 26, 27th.
Motion by Smith,
I'll second.
second by Coe, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, as we talked about last meeting, my grandmother donated all my grandfather's memorial money, had it donated to the city. They wanted a tree planted in the park. They would like to see a red maple go up. I contacted Earl May this week, and they said as soon as we got it approved by the council, they'd come down and plant it. We're also want to put a little plaque next to it. I believe there's one in the park, right? I think it's Kathy's Street. That's got one up there. Something like that is what they were interested in having done. So I guess I'm just looking, because I know we approved one for the garden club a couple weeks ago to be planted, I guess a couple months ago, I mean, to be planted up there in memory of a teacher. So we're just kind of going the same route and asking for approval to have that tree planted for my grandfather's memorial. So I would take a motion, entertain a motion to allow us to plant a tree in there.
I make a motion to approve planting a memorial tree for your grandfather in the city park.
A motion by Chisman,
Second.
seconded by Larry Benge. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, so we'll move on to new business. We have the Wapello County Emergency Management Coordinator, Tim Richmond here, to give us a full presentation on what they do for us.
This is a little informal, but feel free to ask me questions. I apologize for taking so long to get to your council. I've been on the job for a year and a half now, and working pretty diligently to get some information and understanding out about what my office does. I'll direct you first to the colorful one, and we'll talk about the structure of the agency and how it works. If you look at the top, you'll notice every city and the Sheriff's Office and the Board of Supervisors is represented. Those are the people that I answer to. The Emergency Management Agency is created by Chapter 29C in the Iowa Code. It's actually an independent municipality, just like your municipality, and its intention is to be a service organization to support the municipal governments across the county. So I'm not a county department, I'm a county-wide entity, if that makes any sense. It's a little weird because when you hear municipality, you think of a city. So it's dealing with the legal structure of how we work. So my commission is made up of representatives from all those political entities, every city, the county from the Board of Supervisors, and then the sheriff. So it's a 9-member commission in this county is who I answer to. So the chief elected officials, basically. So they set policy and direction and approve the stuff that we work on every day in the agency, and I go on to explain what that stuff is here in the rest of this diagram. So you see in the first blue box where it talks about core responsibilities. These are outlined in the Iowa Code, and you see quite a number of different topics that are discussed here, from hazard analysis to resource management planning, control and coordination, damage assessment, communication and warning, operation procedures, training exercises, public information, and then we also deal with homeland security. Those are all the different topic areas, and there's 32 core capabilities outlined in the national framework. So post 9/11, a lot of things happened at the federal level to get us better prepared as a nation. We figured out we had some gaps in our preparedness, and that's when emergency management was put under Homeland Security, which is a cabinet level position now that answers to the president. That's where FEMA resides. So there's a state level version of that at Iowa, in each state at the state level, and then every county has their version, and that's where we come in. If you look under planning specifically, that's where a bulk of the work happens behind the scenes. And what we have is a very large document called the Local Comprehensive Emergency Plan. That's a pretty big document. That's a 4-inch, 3-ring binder. If you're ever really bored and want something to do, read that. So what do we do with plans? Well, plans are pretty much just a written articulation of what it is we're going to do in response to an emergency. And as you can see, there's a base plan that kind of talks about how in general we respond to emergencies in our community. And then in addendum to that plan, there's 15 emergency support functions is what they're called. And that's what's outlined here in this bottom square. And you see each of the 15 deals with this different specific area of core capability. So we talk about things like ESF1, which deals with transportation. Well, how do we move people and resources in times of crisis? ESF2 talks about communications. So we maintain a communications network, whether that be public or private. So publicly, we maintain 911 system, whether that's the 911 call taking, calls for help from the public, a radio system that communicates with our responders. And then we may partner with private communications folks like cell phone companies and landline companies. ESF3, Public Works and Engineering. You saw a little bit of that at work the last storm we had roll through town. When we were able to do some behind the scenes coordination to get you some assistance, to get some debris moved, to get some street flooding taken care of, those kinds of things. So was able to get you some help from other communities, from their public works departments. ESF4, firefighting. We're probably the most familiar with the fire and law enforcement and EMS because they're in our communities working all the time and taking care of everyday emergencies. 5 deals in my office in emergency management. 6 is mass care, housing, human services. So how do we take care of people when their houses are destroyed or we have those types of emergencies? 7 is resource support. So that's a lot of logistics. So say we have some major issues in our community, we need some supplies. There's a group called Safeguard Iowa that has access to stockpiles of resources, whether it's water, food, those types of things. 8 is public health and medical. There's a group associated with this, and I failed to mention there's oftentimes groups associated with each of these emergency support functions that work specifically on the core capabilities. For example, ESF2 in communications, there's a 911 service board that maintains our infrastructure for 911 communications. ESF4 for firefighting, there's a mutual aid association that meets that's all of our fire departments countywide, and they work on projects to make their mission better. ESF8, there's a countywide healthcare coalition that is made up of the hospital, healthcare clinics, long-term care facilities, emergency medical services. We work on different things like surge capacity. How do we deal with patients? How do we move patients in times of crisis? What if we had to evacuate the hospital? What if there's a pandemic? We do mass vaccinations. Those are the kinds of things that they work on. 9 is search and rescue. That's typically led by law enforcement if we have a missing person or we're looking for a fugitive or someplace, something like that. I've invested some money from my office to supplement that core capability with the purchasing of a drone. So we have a large drone that has thermal capabilities and it's pretty nice cameras. So we have yet to get that thing out and get good at it. ESF10 is hazardous materials. So we have a regional hazmat team that just so happens to be based in our county, and that's the Ottumwa Fire Department. The same members from the Ottumwa Fire Department make up the Southeast Iowa Response Group, and they can respond to and mitigate hazardous material incidents. We've had a little bit of that in this community as well. And that one gets particular attention every single year because that also falls under the federal EPA Right to Know Act. And so there's certain information provided to my office and as well as the office of your fire chief to basically communicate with citizens what kind of hazards exist in your community because you have a right to know about those things. 11 is agricultural, natural resources, and pets. This is an ever-evolving topic as pets are pretty important, and so are agricultural animals. It's kind of a big part of our local economy. So what do we do with emergencies dealing with that type of thing, whether it be another swine flu outbreak or we have a disaster and we have pets running around, we need to make sure we get those accounted for and shelter them as well. ESF 12 is energy, so that's pretty straightforward. We're partnering with our energy partners to restore power and utilities back when we have community-wide damage. 13 is public safety and security, so our law enforcement. 15 is recovery and mitigation. That's always the hardest part of any disaster that occurs is putting the community back together, and that's our recovery plan. And then 15 is public communication, which is one of the core capabilities I'm always working on. With 15, my current work is building a countywide press corps. So gathering our media partners together. Had some really positive conversations. They're all on board and understand the importance of being able to communicate a uniform, succinct message to the public because they're really kind of key when we have crisis and we need to communicate instructions to the public on what to do. Because the public's going to look to us and government and leadership to keep them safe and to get their lives back together. And really, that's kind of what this whole concept of emergency management is all about. If you look at the very bottom, you see some blue lines. There's 4 topics on there. There's mitigation, which is how do we do projects that prevent catastrophic events from happening. And then there's preparedness, response, and recovery. So preparedness is a whole lot about training, planning, and exercise. Response, pretty straightforward. We're resources to coordinate those resources, to be that command and control, to help things run smoothly. Because what our end goal is to get our community put back together and get back to our normal rhythm as quickly as possible. Sometimes that can happen pretty quick, like the last storm happened pretty fast. I mean, a few days work, things are back to normal. A bigger event may take longer than that. What would we do if we had a Parkersburg happen and we had that level of destruction? Those recovery periods take many, many years. Just last week I attended a Homeland Security Conference, which we have every year. This year was in Iowa City, and the reason for that was it's the 10-year anniversary of the 08 floods. And as you know, Iowa City and Cedar Rapids was hit pretty hard. We talked a lot about the lessons learned and what that recovery looks like and just how long that took. And the mitigation things they do in putting the community back together. How do you build things better and make you a little more resilient, a little more resistant to those kinds of things? So those are constant conversations that we have. That's a lot of what we do in and around that planning. We talk about that comprehensive emergency plan. All of those stakeholders that reside in those ESFs need to be part of writing those plans, rewriting those plans, and looking at things differently. Then you take those plans and you train on them, and then we drill them. We figure out what works, what doesn't work, and then we start the cycle all over again, and that just constantly happens. That's how we build core capabilities. So that's what I've been up to, trying to get some fires lit underneath some of those groups again that maybe have been dormant. Some of the leadership in my office has been a little weak, so we're trying to beef that up again and one, get the word out about what emergency management is, talk to all of you in elected positions, because ultimately it's your responsibility to make sure we have the core capabilities that you need to put your community back together. And when those emergencies and disasters happen, it's really up to you to make sure all the things that happen that need to happen to put the community back together. You have contractual relationships with some of your core partners, like the fire department, and you have public works employees and those people to get certain things done. Ultimately, it falls back on you. And I'm not sure anybody ever explains those things when you take an elected office. It's one of the things you have to learn as you go. But it's nothing to stress about. It's nothing to go, oh my goodness, I didn't know about that. It gets handled very easily every day. You've got a lot of great people in your community. And in Blakesburg, a lot of those folks are members of your fire department, and they routinely go above and beyond the core capabilities they're ultimately responsible for. They take on much more than that for you. And that's what happens. I mean, that's what happens in small town Iowa. We all pitch in, we get things done. Sometimes you just need a little help thinking outside the box or just knowing about other resources that's available. Americans speak to that. That's really what I bring to the table for you and for Jimmy at the fire department. It's just, hey, you know what? I know some people over here that have that can help you out. Just knowledge of what's out there countywide, region-wide, statewide. There's just a lot of resources at your beck and call. And they don't always cost anything. That's the beautiful part of it. It's all for the asking. We have such agreements called IMAC agreements between entities in the state, where you can call up any other municipality or county government and your resources. That's why we're able to get all those folks over here from the county road department to help with debris, from the city of Atumwa and city of Eldon, their public works to come over and help with the street issue. That's how we deal with stuff. But probably didn't know that prior to that day.
Well, not prior to that. That's what the night of that storm, my phone started blowing up, and it was Tim. I didn't even have his number in my phone, didn't know who was messaging me. And I asked about people on oxygen that needed the electricity, and we got some out to the fire station, and that was something that, when everything's going on and we're losing power and we got trees and everything down, and I'm worried about just getting streets open, then that was a great, if that come from the emergency management coordinator, is let's figure out anybody that needs that service, let's get them out there to the generator, and that was great. We got, I think, a couple people took advantage of that.
We went and checked on a couple.
Yeah, so yeah, it's good to have Tim and the emergency management staff commission going on, and county supervisors were down, and Tim got us in contact and got the secondary roads guys down here to help clean all that stuff up, so.
There's usually two people that like to check in with the communities when things are going on, or I know things are heading this way. Fire chief, number one, because they've got the pulse on what's happening and what's about to happen, and the mayor. And then our mayor pro tem's also been very involved with our commission. It's kind of a new concept we started. That's been going great. The mayor can't be there, or the mayor pro tem come with the mayor. It's the perfect situation because you just never know. You may be out of town, people travel for different things, work and other things going on in your lives, so it's nice that we have two layers of people that kind of understand roles and responsibilities. And ultimately, you know, when events become big events and we're really kind of setting up our incident command system and we're working on different things, where you guys come in as educating us on what the policies are, and then you are the ones that hold the checkbook. Ultimately, that's the big thing, right? We have to figure out how this is going to impact our budget. Because we can put our community back together and we can get resources, but sometimes they do cost money and sometimes it does take some things. And so, you know, Jimmy and I can't just go do that stuff if it costs money without some approval. And so that's why we will work on our core capability of helping everybody understand what that looks like in incident command structure and how we set up emergency operations center here if it's just affecting your community or whether it's part of a larger county-wide one. There's some training that we'll ask you to do, and I'll come back and we'll talk about that. Maybe we'll have some tabletop drills. We talked about that at the last commission. We'll bring in some guys in the fire department. They're used to working in that incident command structure all the time. It's kind of natural and normal. They may not think of it in the formal way that we'll do some training on. But what it does, it's just a system that was created by FEMA, taken from a lot of lessons learned from a lot of years out west with the wildfires and how they handle that in California and in those states. But that's really what a lot of the FEMA training, the Incident Command, National Incident Management System is all about, is just getting us all on the same page, understanding how the little organizational charts work and the forms that go with it and kind of the process. There's a standard uniform process. And it's overwhelming at first, but we can, trust me, we'll break it down and make it pretty easy, and hopefully it's one of those things we don't have to use a lot. But the main thing is we just need to work on being familiar with one another, being familiar with who can access what, who can do what everybody's roles are, so that when the mayor does make the call, say, we've got a situation here, we all come together, and it's just a normal, natural conversation, like it is when we handle fire scenes. I mean, that's the best example I can give you, not to pick on the fire department constantly, but the fire guys, they do mutual aid and that kind of stuff all the time. And they know what neighboring departments have and what capabilities they have and what resources they can bring to your community, and they don't hesitate to call. And that's why I told you Public Works works the same way. It's kind of like the reason people don't volunteer, the number one reason people don't volunteer to help, they don't get asked. Other entities are that way too. So I'm just pointing in that right direction. That's a 10,000-foot overview of MRSA management. Is there any questions?
I've got about.
One question I got, so I wanted to call you, what NIMS courses should we start? I don't want to get too under.
Keep it simple, and I brought a cheat sheet on how to register for your SID and all that kind of stuff.
I went over there and looked, and I thought, I don't know which one to start with.
100 and 700 is all I really expect at this point. One of them goes over the National Incident Management System, the overall structure that they created for the country. And then basic incident command for small incidents just kind of gets into that structure of you've got an incident commander or a unified command, and you've got certain people on your command staff, and then you've got 4 divisions that take care of logistics and operations and those kinds of things. So you're used to seeing certain parts of that. You're used to seeing operations work and an incident commander work. Anytime you see the fire department out taking care of stuff, they're doing that. But what you may not see is kind of the planning part or maybe some logistics stuff, because that's a little more visible. Planning is more probably coming into play in longer term incidents where we're going to go 12, 24 hours or longer. We're planning for operational periods and we're figuring out what resources come in and how do we keep and sustain these operations. A lot of the smaller emergencies, are just handled in short periods of time, so we don't need to evoke those different pieces of incident command. Does that make sense? So yeah, it's prepping and planning for the bigger stuff, and we hope we never use it. But if we do, we're not panicked about it, and we're like, what do we do now? That's another thing. And they expand and contract as the incident grows and shrinks. I did get a little practice with this recently. I was able to be part of the Palo tornado incident and was part of the incident command team at Vermeer. And it's neat to see it. I don't want this to sound bad, but it's neat to observe and be part of it when it's not your community, and you can see a little more objectively how the pieces work when it's not necessarily all your people. Does that make sense? And I thought it went very well, and generally it does. It's amazing how well crisis makes us be on our toes. But the more we can plan and prep ahead of time, I think the smoother it really does go when the real deal happens. Seems like it's serious out there.
Right now. Any other questions for Tim on the Emergency Management Commission? Tim also knows this from the city side too. He is also the city clerk in Chillicothe, so when he talks about having to write checks and stuff, he knows where it's coming from there.
I
too.
know the budget
that's-
board
he
really
knows
well.
budgets and all that stuff, so, yeah, thanks for coming, man, appreciate it, and we'll definitely,
Call anytime. Jimmy, anything to add?
It works well together when everything's, everybody knows everything from each side. It makes it work pretty good.
so thought the response to the storm that night went really, really well with the fire guys and everybody kind of chipping in and helping out, so.
There's a reason people think so much of fire departments, because they, in a lot of ways, are part of your town's identity. And they really do go way above and beyond what their actual core responsibilities are. And so, yeah, it's just really nice for you to be in a community that has that resource right literally in town, and they just take care of things 95% of the time. But it's important for you to know, and for Jimmy to know, that you've got other help to bring in much bigger resources, and all it takes is a phone call. So, there's the instructions on how to register for an SID number. That's the first step. I will send you the links to the two courses specifically. They say they take 3 hours online, but it usually doesn't take that long. And I apologize, it is a little dry if you're taking a FEMA class. But suffer through it, print the certificates, and then we'll come back and we'll figure out, I'll get with Jimmy and we'll come up with some little tabletop scenario, and we'll just practice the core concepts, and you'd be surprised how easy it really is. We'll bring some of the guys in to do it every day. Sound good?
Sounds good to me, man. Thanks, Tim. Thanks again. Okay, guys, so moving on here. Steve, this is your property here that was next on the agenda, and we're going to proceed with litigation on condemnation of the property. I see you have started work after the meeting. Come sit down with me and let me get a timeline kind of figured out on getting some stuff done for you, so we don't have to go forward with that. So I guess with that being on the agenda, I would entertain a motion to table litigation on condemnation on that property, so we can get a plan, and then if we table it, we never have to come back to it, then even better. But so
I'll give you a motion.
a motion from Smith to table resolution 18.10.8.1.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Chisman. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? I guess that, we didn't need a roll call there, right?
Since we're tabling.
Table it, no, okay. Okay, the property at 305 East State Street. I had a meeting with the property owner. The letter that was sent to him stated that the property was up for condemnation in 2011. It was a nuisance and derelict property and needed to be remedied or torn down by October 15th, 2018, or turn the property over. If you're willing to voluntarily turn over the property, then the city would be willing to discuss this further. What happened was I met with that property owner on 2 Fridays ago. He doesn't have the resources to tear it down. Is willing to hand the property over to the city to be torn down at our expense, but then we'll be able to sell the property at the end, which was kind of, the end game's the same. The property's coming down. It's a dangerous dwelling. It's not a not inhabitable, probably can't be brought up to code. This, I think, is the best recourse for us, considered those were the two options that were given him by the attorney. Was either tear it down or turn it over and the city will tear it down. He agreed, I believe it was September 28th, I got a signature. He asked for until December 1st to get his things out of the property before we tore it down, and I was okay with that as long as we get it signed over. Heather needed us to pass this resolution at the meeting so she can move forward with the legal aspects of him signing it over to the city. So that's how we got to where we got here. Was she sent him a letter, gave him two options, have it down or sign it over. He chose to sign it over and has agreed in principle to sign it over, pending some legal things from Heather. So I guess I am looking for a motion to approve resolution 18.10.8.2, proceed with accepting quitclaim deed for the property at 305 East State Street.
I make a motion that we accept resolution 18.10.8.2.
Motion by Coates. Seconded by Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Larry's opposed. And then we'll do a roll call on the resolution. Chisman.
Aye.
Benge. And your name. Smith.
Aye.
VanDorin. Absent. Cope.
Aye.
Motion. That being a resolution, is that 3 to 5? Resolution carries. Okay, getting to the building permit section of this. I dropped the ball. I dropped it, I did it, it was me, nobody else. When we took office in January, we have had no one has applied for building permit up here. And if you go back and look, I think there was a couple approved in December. Prior to that, there weren't hardly any building permits approved. So I haven't looked at the ordinances pertaining to building permits because we haven't had to until recently. Under Title 7, Chapter 1, Building and Land Use Regulations, I was supposed to have appointed a building official, the council, to appoint one of its members as a building official who will be responsible for the administration and enforcement of this chapter, which all pertains to building permits, applications, restrictions, amendments, completions of existing buildings, application. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. In the past, there had been, it was a lot more cut and dry, it seemed like, in the 2015 ordinance book. What we have now, there's so much, one chapter contradicts the next chapter. What I would like to see going forward is for us to, hopefully by next month, have this streamlined into, I almost rewrite the whole chapter of the ordinance book. In the past, it stated a lot about footings, excuse me, and what you needed and what you didn't need for a permit. And there's so much gray area and that I would like by next month, I'm hoping, getting with the attorney, getting set rules in place that are easy to enforce, and everybody knows what you need a permit for, because this is so, right now, Title 6, Chapter 6, Article 9(3). No structure shall be erected, reconstructed, altered, or added without first securing a permit from the city council. So, reconstructed, that's what mine's gonna be, is a reconstruction. Okay, I'm gonna tear down the deck off my house, I'm gonna put a new deck on. That was never in there before. If you were taking something off and you were replacing that existing structure, you didn't need one. And I think a lot of people have been operating under those thoughts for quite some time. Altered. If somebody paints their house, does that mean they need a permit? No, I mean, that's just silly. We talked to the League of Cities today, and Mickey said no. He agreed that it sounded like when this was approved again in January of 17, that we didn't read a whole lot of it and didn't discuss it with the attorney. So this is the first time I've had to deal with building permits. And I'll be the first to admit, I don't do construction. I don't know construction, don't do construction, can't. I could name all 30 quarterbacks in the NFL, but I couldn't tell you how to build digging a hole is difficult, okay? So I can't be the building official. We need to appoint a building official at our next meeting. I think we have a council person that would be okay to that and be good at that position. But we need to streamline and fix this first. We need to fix the ordinance book. That being said, I think this does fall on me for the time being to be the building official and approve these 3 building permits that we have tonight, because I would move that we approve all 3. I mean, we have to do them one by one, I believe. When this book was codified in January of 2017, there were 3 things that were carried over, and that was it, from the old ordinance book to this ordinance book. One was a rezoning of 203 West State Street, Alliant Energy franchise fee, and a minimum wage ordinance. Those are the only 3 things that were carried over, and then basically this book, me and Kevin started going through and trying to see everything we needed to transfer from the old book to the new book. There was about 30 pages of notebook paper that had notes on it, that stuff that we need to change or need to put in, take out. We've already added fees and fines, which one thing that didn't carry over and we didn't add into our new fines was violation of a building permit. So again, a lot of things, it's on me because we got a lot of stuff done in the first 10 months we've been in office, and I thank everybody for it. I thank the public for all their cooperation. But going forward, I agree with the public, with Randy, when he said that we need to start enforcing this, because there has been some shoddy structures put up and erected around town. But with the confusion on what needs a permit and what doesn't need a permit, it is confusing to the public because it's confusing to us, I think, right now. So I do recommend, from looking at the specs and reading, I think you guys have read through the building permits that have been filled out. And I think we'll start with the first one. Yes, Bob.
Something that we really need to look at on these things is the setbacks that we have in our ordinances from the property lines, and so we don't approve something that we say has to be torn down or.
Which that one, and that was what the comment on the variance is. The variance, I think there's a couple things that were passed 16 and 17 that were, the specs were off. The mayor at the time just said, let's go ahead and go with it, looks good to me, and it was passed. I don't know enough to be that guy, I guess is what I'm saying, and that's why we need to appoint. It doesn't have, if we can rewrite that part of it, and it doesn't have to be a council member, and we just appoint somebody that's a building official. Also, in my discussion with Mickey today, I asked him, I said, are there cities out there that it doesn't have to come before the city council to approve that? If you have a building official, building inspector, he can approve them on site. Yeah, so you don't have to wait for a council meeting to do that. He said bigger cities do. He said a lot of small towns don't, they make it come before the council. But if you've got a contractor that's got 2 or 3 days come open, you come up, you get your permit, you fill it out. If we had a guy that we trusted enough that could go down and give the green light to do that, that can be done. And I would be for that personally. I think they would save a lot of time. But we have to get the chapter streamlined in here first,
I need
okay?
to straighten it. Am I right, an expedited permit, and this is what concerns me, storm damage. Maybe I've been waiting for my contractor for 2 months on a new porch, and the guy's got a week open to come in. It's $150 for an expedited permit. Now I think we have to have a council meeting. And I'd like to see the deal, and we kicked it around, I don't know where it's gonna end up. My ideal way would be a councilman, say, heading it up. And we've got somebody, I'll say, that knows what they're doing, a building inspector, that can come in and do that stuff. And,
Because I do believe that this is something that, I mean, if we're gonna have people coming into town, we need this book to be more user-friendly. We need to be more user-friendly. I think
That should be a lot more cut and dry.
Yeah,
a lot more cut and dry as
the word
opposed to.
repair, you cut that. I caught Alder. Mesa, Arizona, I got stumbled on them the other day. Mesa, and I'm sure it doesn't say everything, they describe when you need a permit, but they also have about 3 pages in their, in the description code that tells you the instances you don't. Like if you replace faucet, you don't need a plumbing permit, paint, drywall. So they go through a whole list of things you don't need a permit for, which helps a lot, I think. But
So I guess we'll start with the first permit applied for, which is Leffler, which is mine. Applying to tear down the existing deck, replacing it with one in the exact same place. It won't be enclosed, that's the only difference. Again, it's something in the past that we didn't, I don't know if I need one or not, but better to have one and not need it than need one and not have it, I think. So I'm asking you guys to please approve my permit for putting my deck on. Take a motion from someone.
I'll give you the motion.
Motion by Smith,
I'll second.
second by Chisman, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? No. Thank you.
Are you having this work done?
Yes, I'm not doing it because I can't dig a hole, that's what I said.
He's not doing it.
Yes, no, I'm not, no.
I'm just checking.
Okay, now Councilman VanDorin, and that was one, applied for putting a metal roof on existing small garage and a dog kennel and a roof storage on the east side of the garage, and he put this on 4x6 skids. Originally, I believe it was gonna be something that was put in the ground, changed his mind, decided to have it on skids, because again, if it had footings and it was something that was dug in, then it was something that was gonna have to be, I mean,
That's what we thought.
needed a permit for. Did it this other way because in the past, and as this reads, I'm not sure. Again, like I said, it's not so cut and dry. So
If it's not a permanent structure, it's
that's what we're getting at.
That's where we're correct. For years around here, it was just basically if you dig a hole or pour cement, you need a building permit. And I'm finding out it's a lot more complicated now.
Right.
But for $10, each one of us here can surely afford to get a permit and not set a
Well,
bad example.
Right.
We did talk about it, permit or not, and I've gotten semi-paranoid on the subject. If anybody, I don't care if you drive a steel post, do a one call. I mean, it's serious, do a one call. I mean, everybody in town, make a one call. There's some nightmares out there.
So I would recommend, I think the work is actually, I mean, again, it's done because he wasn't sure, didn't know. The book was kind of sketchy when we got to reading it. But I would recommend we go ahead and approve this and then start to streamline the work going forward. So I take my recommendation is we approve. I'll take a motion to approve the permit.
I'll make a motion to approve the permit.
Motion by Coe.
Second.
Seconded by Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now, Jim Devers came with one, and it was very well drawn up. As you can see, he printed the sheet off the internet there. It showed where he's going to pour a concrete slab for a concrete pad for a dog kennel, right? That's what it is. And that one is something like Kevin said, do a one call, make sure there ain't nothing if you got to dig anything. It's clearly, as you can see on that, what I do with mine. I had it, you had one all sitting in front of you there, map. And you can see right where it comes off the back of the house, it's right in the middle of the property. There's old book, new book, that one clears inspections, and even I could see that from the map and the picture he gave us. So I would recommend we approve Jim Deaver's building permit to put his concrete slab for his dog pen.
I'll make a motion, we approve Jim's building permit.
Second.
Motion by Chisman, second by Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, this last one we discussed today, and we're not sure. This is another one, once we get some more ideas. Last year, the only thing that kept water running in town was a little itty bitty, like,
Milk house heater.
milk house heater. The pump house is not insulated at all. Got a little box that's got some insulation in it that the heat to keep the pump. Discussions last spring, we talked about doing some spray foam insulation to keep it warm. We talked to Bob today. He thought if we just insulated the box better, that would be enough to, I think it was Councilman VanDorin that mentioned possibly putting a wall up and insulating it, and then just keeping a little sectioning off that little room and doing the spray foam stuff to keep it nice and warm in there, so we didn't have to worry about freezing up. I know our city superintendent went down 3 times a night last year when it was 20 below. Checked it in the morning when he got up, went and checked, make sure everything was running in the afternoon, and then he said right before he went to bed, he'd drive up and check on it again.
Yeah, so Gary went above and beyond to make sure we had water.
I think that that's something that we definitely need to research before the next meeting. I kind of wanted it on the agenda tonight so we could discuss it a little bit. And I know Bob, I think, took you down Asa to look at it, see that it is kind of an issue.
That east wall really doesn't have, against the brick, there's no insulation there.
Yeah.
So if we had some insulation that fit properly with the box we got, it'd make a lot of difference in heat loss.
Yeah.
And I saw this thing in an REC magazine, but I didn't keep it, of a device that will notify you if the temperature drops a certain level.
That's what I think Kevin was kind of
Yeah,
researching out.
I'm trying to Google something up. Well,
if there's a thermostat on that would send, like we could have 2 or 3 of us get a message sent to your phone, and that would tell you if it dropped below a certain temperature in there as well. Thought that might be something to look into, depending on, cost effectiveness, to make sure everything's cost efficient and everything. But I just kind of wanted to get that thought out there in everybody's mind, thinking about doing something hopefully within the next month, or prior to next month, so after the meeting next month, we can get a plan in place that we can execute and get the pump house, either get the whole house insulated or get the pump insulated.
I think something we need to keep in mind when we're doing this is if there's any type of fire hazards or anything, we're talking about enclosing this and putting a little heater in there. It's no big deal to call the fire department and say, hey.
yeah, get somebody in to check that out.
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of kicking around. I don't know. I'd probably say, let's get to figuring it out, do something in November. I wouldn't be pushing to have it done by December.
No, I think
It's kind of scary.
Yeah. Yeah, but let's plan on getting we'll formulate a plan, get it in place. Got a lot on our table for the next month, trying to get that ordinance rewritten and coming up with a good comprehensive plan for the pump house. But it's definitely something that, again, been neglected for a long time, and just another thing for us to check off the list, guys, I think. So it's something that's needed done for a while. And I know when I took office in January, Bob took me on a trip, I think in March, and it's something we discussed then, and we didn't. We just need to have it done before the real cold hits. So.
And there is insulation that is not flammable that you can buy in the sheet, and that might,
Up a level, we've got some experts. I'm sure they can.
I'm good at putting them out.
Well, you're good at putting them out. We'll figure something out. I think what I'm kicking around in my head, it seems like most of us are, we'll get something good in there to replace the current heater, and then maybe a backup system, whether it's electric or LP or whatever.
Okay, so that's something we'll have in place hopefully for the November meeting. I have something that I forgot to add to my notes. I just got back in town right before the meeting. I had to take my wife to a doctor's appointment in Iowa City, so I was kind of rushed. We took down all the trees in the park there a couple months ago, and I think it was you, Asa, that asked if there was a plan in place to replant any. There is a grant from Alliant Energy that we could apply for. Each community we'd be eligible to apply for up to 5 about replenishing some of the trees that we took down in the park. And elsewhere around town, I know we took some other ones down, and we feel there's a need to get some more trees going up, hate taking down and not replacing something. So on that note, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Coe,
Second.
second by Smith. All in favor?
Just waiting for Larry.
Hold on.
Well, I'll get the